Hey, for the first time in my life, I'm going to try to be brief, and I've literally never asked you guys this before, but please watch till the end of this video. Interestingly, I posted that video yesterday about Operation Olive Branch and the fundraiser in Gaza for Abed al-Salam and his family, trying to get them out, and I noticed something weird. These are my metrics for this video, and it's interesting because lawmakers just admitted that one of the reasons why they want to ban TikTok is because of the pro-Palestinian content on here, but this video has incredible metrics, honestly. Almost 11% watch my full video. I'm a fucking yapper, so that never happens to me, but what you'll notice is this video at this point had 25,000 views and almost 9,000 likes and over 700 shares. These are crazy metrics. Like, there was so much engagement on this video, but you'll notice there's a steep drop off in the video views curve here, and that's because last night there was a notification right here that I wish I had screenshot, but I didn't, that said that this video was ineligible for views on the For You page. Shocker. I never got a notification or any kind of notice that my video was not being shown to people, but it did say that I could appeal it, so I pressed it, and it didn't say wait for your results or anything. It literally automatically just said your appeal is approved, as though it knew that there was no reason why this video shouldn't be seeing the public anyways. Weird, huh? Weird how that happens. What is unbelievably amazing to me is, despite the fact that that video still has less than 30,000 views, in the 24 hours since I've posted it, you guys have raised another 6,000 euros for Abed and his family. If you want to go back and watch my original video, you can to get more details, but just to sum it up, Abed is safe in Germany and he's trying to raise funds to get his family out of Gaza. They have fled to Rafah. He has a sister who is 8 months pregnant in a war zone. Her husband is missing. I can't even imagine. There are children in his family, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. His father needs medical care. Unfortunately, the people of Gaza are in this situation now where they have no choice but to raise money to try and flee, to pay the fees to cross the border. It's not at all fair. But it's the situation that is the best way that we can help right now. You guys constantly amaze me. I'm literally so honored that so many incredible people follow me. That video was so throttled and you guys still raised so much money. If you have anything to donate, please do. Help if you can. There are other links in my bio to donate to the World Central Kitchen and Save the Children. And you can also check out the master doc of Operation Olive Branch. Anything. Thank you. Thank you guys. So a lot of you have asked me to talk about some of my favorite Palestinian films, and I actually made a video in October recommending some of my favorites. I pinned it to the top of my profile, so you can go check that out for my recommendations. But since it's Mother's Day, I thought I could recommend a couple more, starting with 3,000 Nights, which is an incredible film based on the true stories of Palestinian women in Israeli prisons. The story centers around a young Palestinian woman who's a school teacher, and she's pregnant, and she is arrested on suspicion of helping an attack against the government. And even though there's no evidence, she's sentenced to 8 years in prison. She's pregnant, so she spends most of her pregnancy in prison. She has her baby in prison, and her baby is with her in prison for a certain amount of time. And this film is incredibly inspiring and beautiful, and also devastating. So be forewarned, but this is incredibly worth your time. Another fantastic one, Salt of the Sea. It's about an American Palestinian who visits Palestine for the first time after her family left before she was even born, and the difficulty that she faces being allowed to go anywhere, have any kind of mobility in occupied Palestine. It's really beautiful. Like, I would categorize it as like coming of age genre, but it's obviously very specific to this experience. The last one I'll recommend for now, Gaza Mon Amour, is an incredibly sweet and romantic story about an older Palestinian gentleman who decides that he would like to get married, and sees a woman at his bus stop that he kind of falls head over heels in love with. It's really adorable. They obviously are living in Gaza, and that is central to the story. But what I love about this film is that it really is just romantic. It's so sweet. Speaking of Gaza, the family that I'm trying to help raise funds, Abed al-Salam's family, we have raised almost $20,000 in the past 2 days. This has been really incredible to see. As a reminder, Abed's sister is 8 months pregnant in a war zone. She really needs medical attention. His father needs medical attention. There's a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old in this family, and they desperately need to raise funds to pay to cross the border when it reopens. This is impressive. I know you guys see this a lot. A creator that I really like called Yuval, he has mentioned that even just giving small amounts to these when you can. If you can give $1, the small amounts have added up so much, and it's been incredible to see. I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks. Happy Mother's Day, I guess.
Maybe this is a hot take, but I actually don't think it matters if people are being genuine or not, if it saves the lives of a Palestinian family. Like, I don't think at the end of the day that it actually matters. Is it personally upsetting? Sure. Is it disappointing that you have to literally threaten some people for them to care about other people? Yes. But at the end of the day, if it's going to help somebody, them speaking out is going to help somebody, Okay, I understand feeling disappointed and feeling anger, but listen to me when I say this. It's not about your feelings. It's not about your personal feelings. It is about whether or not it will help Palestinian people. That's why when people are actually posting, when they're getting influencers or whatever to post, and people are like, oh, well, it's too late. First of all, we're all too late. That's number one. Even if you start talking about this in October, this has been going on for decades. We're all too late, technically, if we really want to talk about it. And also, it is not too late if you can save an entire family. It is not too late when Israel is still actively murdering people. Should they have talked about it sooner? Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, continuing. My problem with the too late comments is that, like, it's only too late from the perspective of someone who is not literally in Gaza being actively bombed. Some people are still alive. It is not too late for them. It seems crazy to be someone on the internet and be like, it's too late when you're sitting in your house comfortable. I understand the sentiment. Trust me, I understand the sentiment. But the function at this point has to come over the feelings. My qualm with the block list is not, this is not a defense of celebrities. I'm just saying, y'all don't, there's no set block list. 1,000,001 people are just making different block lists. It's not organized. Nobody can follow it. Nobody even knows why they're doing it. If you go to this video, there's a bunch of different comments of people being like, it's for Palestine. It's so that the attention is drawn away from celebrities. It's so that it's actually just about celebrity culture. There's 1,000,000 different reasons. I'm like, y'all aren't even on the same page. Because there's people who are active advocates for Palestine and have been for years that are ending up on this list. Because y'all don't look, period. And here's the thing, right? I think a lot of people don't understand how, like, boycotts or initiatives like this are supposed to work. Because some people are, again, like, this is to persuade people to talk about it, right? Yuval was able to raise money for, like, 3 or 4 different families in, like, a matter of days. Whereas on Lizzo's video, people are just like, we don't care. And that makes sense to me because it's, like, also, like, as a famous person, I'm sure that you have more connections than, like, someone who's an influencer would. Like, you know people who are wealthier. And it does, like, come off as, like, weird to ask people who don't make very much money to help other people who don't make much money. But here's the thing, if the goal is to persuade people to do an action, they have to be incentivized in some way to do that action, right? Because obviously we're talking about people who haven't spoken up, right? If you're blocking them or withdrawing your attention or taking away your view, right? Until they speak up, but they speak up and you're like, whatever, you're still blocked forever. That's fine if that's your own personal, moral, whatever thing. That is fine, but that does not work to incentivize people to do anything. Because you don't have any stake in what happens to them. Like, it doesn't, if you're never going to give them your attention back, they don't care now. It's supposed to be like a do what I say or else. That's what it is. If you say do what I say or else I'm going to keep doing what I already am doing no matter what you do, there's no incentive to do what you say. Same thing with the boycotts. People were out loud being like, oh, I'm just never going to this company ever again. I'm boycotting forever. Well, it's saying I take away my dollar until you do this. And then you can have my dollar back. But they do the thing so that they can have your dollar back. If they can never have your dollar back, they're not gonna do the thing. That's what I mean. Similarly, like when I'm saying, like, it doesn't make sense to be like, these people are blocked forever or whatever forever, or I'm ignoring them forever. If your incentive, if the goal, I'm saying if, because people have told me 9 million different goals because y'all don't know what you're doing. If that is the goal, it does not then make sense to do that because nobody is incentivized to do anything. If you want to make it about celebrity culture, fine. And it's not really in reference to this comment, just other people have been saying that, fine. But you don't say that it's in the name of Palestine and be like, oh, it's just about celebrity culture. Because now you're just, everything that's supposed to be about Palestine is just filled with all this stuff about celebrity culture. By trying to decenter them, y'all have centered them. Intentionally or not, but that's what happened. Again, the focus should be on Palestinian people. And another thing, I've seen some people include people who are Palestinian in these lists. I've seen people commenting on, like, creators who are Palestinian when they post something that's not related to the current genocide, being like, you're not talking about it enough. First of all, y'all, oh my God, that's so weird. First of all, something happening to your people is very different than it happening to another people. Just like psychologically and like mentally, emotionally, it's very different. It's actually a little sinister to get on here and be like, Palestinian people, you tell everyone why you deserve to live. Get on the internet and tell everyone why your people deserve to live. Convince us why your people should not die. That's fucking weird. Yeah, they're probably very emotional about the situation and are not going to talk about it as much as other people. I remember a similar thing happening with, like, the George Floyd protests, and people were like, why aren't these black people saying stuff? Maybe they're distraught. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe they're trying to cultivate their joy because people who look exactly like them are fucking dying. Like me, I'm Haitian. There's a lot of stuff going on in Haiti right now, and I haven't physically talked about it on this app because I will start crying. But when it's someone's own people, like, I think you need to give people grace because you do not understand that scenario. But yeah, my issue with the block party is not the idea. I understand the idea. I think if it was organized, maybe you're onto something, but it's not. And nobody knows what they're supposed to do. And people are like, do we unblock after? Do we do this? But people are just doing shit. Anyways, since people misunderstand everything on the internet, let me try to clear up any confusions from the last video. It's not a defense of celebrities. I'm just saying that some people on your TV are not very rich. As we saw with the SAG-AFTRA strike, when people were like, hey, I literally don't get paid. That's not me saying that there was no tone deafness surrounding the Met Gala this year, that there was no celebrities in the wrong. Absolutely there are. But yeah, my point is not like, oh, if people speak up, like, we have to be nice to them, you guys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, you don't have any leverage if you're gonna ignore them no matter what. Like, functionally, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, also leave Palestinian people and creators alone if they're trying to express joy. People should not be reduced to their fucking suffering. That is dehumanizing. To be like, oh, you're Palestinian? Well, why aren't you only suffering and feeling incredible pain right now? Well, they probably are. They probably are, that's the thing. But they can experience other emotions as well. Palestinian people are not their suffering. Every time something happens to a group, y'all want to reduce them to their suffering. But yeah, that's basically my point. The too late comments piss me off because people are still dying. So it's not too late. Sorry, this video is like a million different clips from a million times in the day because I'm in Denmark and I have a lot of jet lag. But anyways, I'm not saying forget the people who didn't say shit till we threatened them. Remember that personally. But remember the goal is what I'm. But I just think if you're saying, oh, this is for the Palestinian people, organize that correctly because that's for saving the lives of people. It's not a joke. I'm not saying shut up about influencers or shut up about celebrities. Yeah, bother them. But remember why you're doing it. Anyways, once again, there's a link in my bio to a GoFundMe for a family of 14 trying to evacuate Gaza. They particularly have a little girl with them who has a genetic disorder that she needs help for. So if you are able to donate, please do so. I also I'm very aware that my TikTok demographic is age range probably 16 to 20 something. And that's obviously not an age that has a lot of disposable income. So if you're another creator that maybe has a bit of an older demographic, if you could post that GoFundMe as well, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, but this is such a good point because Daphne Bridgerton actually actively chose to save Simon's life. She was like, oh my god, you're gonna die. You're gonna go duel my brother. You're gonna go duel my brother. I have to save you. So she rode at dawn, unchaperoned, to the battlefield where they were he aims his pistol at the sky. Wait! But without aiming the pistol at the sky, it was just gonna be aiming it at each other. But Simon was probably gonna aim at the sky. Simon wasn't gonna aim at Anthony, so Anthony was just gonna bang bang. He shot me down, bang bang. Hits the ground, bang bang. Anyways. So Daphne rides into battle and she's like, no, literally, don't die. Marry me and protect me. Don't die. And Simon is like, well, if we get married, we can have kids. And Daphne is like, you know what? That's fine. You can't produce children. That's fine. I would just really rather you not be dead. I would really rather that. And also, if you die, my reputation will still be ruined. I feel like everyone's forgetting the fact that even if you duel, my reputation will still be ruined. Everyone likes to forget that part, but it will be still ruined. So she's like, marry me. And he's like, oh. And she has to beg him, even in the battlefield, to marry her. And it's so hard to deal with that fact because he never wanted to marry her, even a little bit. And it's so frustrating because Daphne's begging this man to be with her. And he's just doing the absolute least because he got what he wanted, which was into her pants. And then he yeeted out of the atmosphere and lied to her. And was what she did okay? No. But at the time period, was that even a thing that would be considered a thing in a marriage? Also no. Also no. And does that make it okay? No. But mostly I'm just mad that Julia Quinn decided to write it. And when I say write it, I mean write literally any part of it, because why were they so toxic? They're so ickily toxic. Okay, bye. Guys, something literally so exciting happened. Okay, ready? 2 days ago, on Thursday, I started posting about this family who are trying to evacuate from Gaza. These are Hala and Abd al-Aziz. Hala is 7 months pregnant, and their goal 2 days ago was 10,000, and they were at 3,000. And now I literally just went to go check in, and they were able to move their goal from 10,000 to 25,000 because they have reached 10,331. They're trying to get both themselves out and Hala's mother, who is ill. And I'm so excited. The goal is like getting further, and if you guys can donate $1, $2, $5, anything helps. Literally anything. I saw that someone just posted anonymously $754, which is so impressive and so crazy and so amazing, but you don't need to donate that much. If you can donate literally anything that you have to be able to help these two, that is amazing, and that is so good, and thank you so much. And if you can help them, that would be amazing, so that they can get out of Gaza and so that their baby can be born in a safe space. Thank you guys. And then I just realized I didn't tell you where you can donate because I got too excited. So there are 2 options, and both are in my link tree. One is literally just going straight to the GoFundMe, which is the top option, or you can go to Operation Olive Branch. They're in the prenatal section under bar 19, and they're highlighted because they're on the heater right now. So please go help them if you can. This is so great. This is so good. You guys are you guys are doing so much to help this family. Thank you. Do you ever decide that you're going to trim your own bangs, and then you trim your own bangs, and then you're like, was this a mistake? Because now if you pull your hair back, you could potentially look like one of the Beatles, but you're like, this is fine. I have a great face shape. I have a perfect face shape for this. I can totally trim my bangs. Because I do this all the time. I know that in a couple of weeks, this will have grown back down to here, and then I'll have to do this all over again because I don't like trimming my bangs every 2 weeks. I do this. But here is not the other thing. Guys, the actually exciting thing happened. Like, an actually exciting thing, the most exciting thing. Hala and Abed and Amal have reached $21,696. On Saturday, they only had $10,000, which is still amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But in 2 days, it's Monday at 11:27 at night, they have doubled their goal. And not only have they doubled their goal, they've been able to increase their goal to 35,000. On Saturday it was at 25,000, and this is good because it costs about like 5,000 to 10,000 per person to get out of Gaza. It's Hala, who is 7 months pregnant. She has hepatitis A. She is ill. She has high bilirubin. Let me check the pronunciation. She has high bilirubin levels, which can be really dangerous for her child. And it's not just her and her husband, it's also her mother who is staying with them. And they are getting so close to not only being able to leave Gaza, but to being able to have the funds to support themselves once they are out of Gaza. And it's because of you guys. It's because of what you guys are doing. So if you can, please go to my link tree. It is literally the top thingy right here. That's the link for them. Or if you want to go specifically to Operation Olive Branch and see how many people that you can support, if you want to be able to support more than just one family, the link is right there, and they are under the prenatal section on level 19, or line 19, not level 19. I'm talking in video game speak. Any amount of money helps. Any amount of money. If you can just give $5, literally just $5, you are helping this family so much. Do you see what is possible? On Saturday, they were at $10,000. On Thursday, they were at $3,500. And now they've gone from 100 donations to 1,000 donations. And those 1,000 donations have helped them to increase their goal by so much. Please keep helping them. Please keep sharing this. If you can't help, if you can't donate any money, I understand. I completely understand. The world is so hard right now, and even buying gas, it takes just so much out of you. But if you can share this, if you can comment, if you can just do anything to be able to help this family, thank you. And please, please, please pray for them. Please pray for a safe birth for the baby. Please pray for the mother and the child and the father and the grandmother to be safe. And please pray for them to get out of Gaza. Thank you, guys.
I know a lot of us have been talking about Pass the Hat and Operation Olive Branch recently, and I wanted to show you a little bit in real time how quickly of an impact this conversation has made. This is Dr. Hisham, and he is trying to raise money to get his family out of Gaza. He has a wife and a baby. This GoFundMe was created on February 24th, and as of 6 days ago, had raised $5,599. And there were donations coming in, but some days none came in, and a lot of the time it was just a handful a day. But look at how much that has changed in the last 6 days. Like, if you think that your voice does not make an impact on this movement, think again, because in less than a week we were able to double what they had raised in this GoFundMe. If you would like to help this family or others, you can find them in my profile. Thank you so much to everybody who has helped out. I really hope that we can get this family what they need.
So Joe Biden posted this mental health is health post on Twitter on May 1st because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I cannot stop thinking about it. Because while the implication is that like mental health matters and you should take care of yourself and it's a part of health and yada, 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 I can't help but think about the mental health of all of the Palestinians currently in Gaza living through the ongoing genocide that he is funding. Like, as their homes and communities and cultural landmarks have been destroyed over 200 days of almost endless bombardment, as their children are getting death certificates before birth certificates, as they are being intentionally and deliberately starved, as they're being trapped and massacred, I wonder how their mental health is doing. And then I think of all the Palestinians who are not in Palestine, who are missing their homes and their communities, who are living in endless fear of a phone call that they hope they never receive, or are praying that they even get a phone call at all. And then I think about the college students and the faculty who are standing up against this, who are trying to do what's right and are being brutalized and demonized and criminalized by his own hand, despite having protests that are 99% peaceful, up into the police and counter protesters show up. And then I think about the mental health of all of the people around the world who are just inundated with all of this graphic content around the clock of this violence, something that we should bear witness to, but something that he could just end, or at least be a part of ending if he felt so inclined. And this is not to say that mental health doesn't matter and that mental health isn't health. In fact, it's the opposite. It's to say we all know that mental health is so important that he knows talking about it should be a part of his campaign strategy to get his base back of young voters. And yet, with that knowledge in his pocket, he makes this little patronizing post talking about how important mental health is, while he does nothing but contribute to the destruction of the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of people around the world. It's, please. All men should start their life in prison and prove their ways out. No, but you know what they do need? Like a year of court-mandated therapy and like 2 intro to feminism courses. Like, I know that first comment started off probably as like a little bit of a joke, but as we continue having this discourse, it's a comment I'm seeing more and more of. And while it's obviously not feasible, I've been thinking about it. And thinking about it concretely as we work towards things like prison abolition and liberation, I don't want to see a whole bunch of people criminalized like out of the womb, especially not a bunch of little black boys. No, thank you. However, I have never, ever met a man who wouldn't benefit from therapy. Like, I've never met one. And yes, all people need access to mental health resources and to therapy, but there's something about the way that women and non-binary folk have conversation and build community and connection that is very different from the way men do it. And we have a different space for our emotions and like community wherewithal in a way that men oftentimes don't, because they're not socialized to. And while we're working to dismantle the systems that make this inequity possible, I'm thinking a year's worth of therapy, like right around the time they're like 13 to like 16-ish, and then they can continue, but at least bare minimum the year. And then a couple of courses of intro to feminism just to add on like additional perspective so they can actually like learn what feminism is and its key tenets and how the patriarchy is a disservice not just to women and non-binary folks, but also to cis men, like just so they can learn all of like the foundationals and approach conversations with like a little bit more empathy. And I'm not saying that's going to fix it, because therapy and a few classes is not going to fix like a systemic issue. But if we're just thinking in hypotheticals, a year of therapy and a few extra classes isn't going to hurt anybody. Sometimes I'll bury like some vital information into the later parts of a video, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident, and see if y'all watch the videos all the way to the end, or at least close. And y'all very rarely do. And it's not just me, y'all do this to a bunch of content where you'll watch like the first 15, maybe 20 seconds, form an opinion, leave a comment, and move on, and just completely ignore like the rest of the video, even if they address what you're talking about. And even if they don't, it's so concerning that y'all don't finish engaging with the content you're consuming. It's like you're leaving a book review on a book you read like a chapter of, and it's weird.
Like if you made it this far in the video, you would know that our friends still need eSIMs, and this is a really good way to get them the eSIMs that they need. And I would know that you saw this because you'd leave a comment talking about like your favorite summer fruit, but you won't. Instead, you might watch the first 20 seconds, leave a comment about how the content should be more engaging and hold your attention and all that kind of stuff, and scroll on when you could scroll on the whole time. But y'all should really watch the content all the way through and then comment. You know, a thought. I am so tired of men only caring about men's mental health in conversations about women and the violence that they experience at the hands of men. I am so tired of men only talking about the violence they experience at the hands of women in conversations about the violence women experience at the hands of men. And obviously, it's not all men, but so often men will use these things to detract from the ongoing conversation as if the issues that men experience are not serious, as if they're only there to be exploited as a talking point to diminish this other important conversation. Right after the "not all men do these violent acts" discourse ends, y'all are quick to come up with, okay, but what about women who are also bad? Do you think women are perfect? Girl, who said that? Essay against men, men's mental health, the loneliness epidemic, all these issues, these valid issues that are impacting men on a day-to-day basis, and y'all don't care, don't act like you care, and do nothing about it up until the point where women go, I actually don't want to be alone in the woods with you. Or according to a study, 90% of women in their lifetime are going to be sexually harassed, or some other stat or some other new thing. All of a sudden, y'all come out of the woodworks as this whole, oh, so y'all don't care about men? You don't care about men. Do you know how many times I've had conversations with my male peers talking about their first actual intimate encounter, only to find out that that is an SA? And I'm like, hey, losing your virginity at 14 to a 19, 20-year-old, are you okay? Like, that's not cool. The boys are dapping him up. I'm concerned for his well-being. The women around me are concerned for his well-being. Do you know how many times that's happened to me? Or do y'all remember that therapist on here who was like, men need to go to therapy? And y'all literally cost her job and then proceeded to ridicule her for the things she had to do after you guys cost her job. Remember that? Because she was standing up for you. She was trying to make sure you took care of yourselves, got help that you needed. Violence and harm against men is not a talking point for y'all to use to deter conversations about violence against women. The two things are awful and can coexist and should not be used to deter or undermine each other. Give it a break. This is what Rafa looks like. This has been taking place 4 hours in the middle of the night. A community with 61,000 children in it, 1.7 million people currently sheltering there because they were told this is the safe place to go. This is the place to seek refuge. They have been trapped there for weeks, months even, starving, struggling, getting sick with no hospital infrastructure, living in tents. And this is what it looks like right now. I know we've been talking a lot about the encampments popping up across the United States on college campuses and how brave these students are, and they deserve our accolades and our praise and our recognition. And also, this is what they're protesting against. Their safety is what they're protesting for, and how the imperialist structure that allows for this to happen must fall. And this is also why, hopefully, every 3 to 4 scrolls on your For You page, you see a family or a creator advocating for a family trying to raise enough money to get out of here, because these living conditions are uninhabitable. And in this moment, these people are being massacred yet again. It has been over 200 days of this unending violence, and I know you might be feeling whatever type of way about it at this point. You might be feeling tired, or you might not be thinking about it as much because you're becoming desensitized, or you're not used to seeing so little content about it at this stage. But I can promise you the people living through it are feeling way worse. So if you can donate, whether it's to a family trying to evacuate or to an aid organization on the ground, do that. If you can't, continue to amplify voices, attend protests, support the students in the encampments, do whatever you can. Because this is what Rafa looks like tonight, right now. You are seeing less content because they don't want you to see it and are doing everything in their power to make that happen. This includes the endless suppression. This includes them trying to ban TikTok. This includes making political content optional on Instagram. All of it is interconnected. It's why Al Jazeera, the main media platform we've all been using to keep up with like up-to-date real-time updates about what's happening has been banned by in the last couple of days. And it's why most notably we have seen the highest number of journalists being unalived in any conflict in the world, like ever. Over 75% of all journalists unalived in 2023 were unalived over the course of this genocide. That is 92 journalists and media workers. 92. And this is your reminder that doing that, targeting journalists, is a war crime. You cannot do that. And yet, 92. 92. Also a reminder that a lot of the people who weren't working for the media, that are just people taking videos and uploading content, are displaced. They are unalived. They have since fled the country. They are running out of eSIMs. It is becoming deliberately and intentionally harder and harder to get news about what's happening on the ground in. If you're wondering where all of the content is going, besides all of the people who are tired of showing every single day their struggles and their hardships just for this to continue, it's not going away, it's being taken away. And that's why it's so important that we continue to talk about this, even when we can't see it around the clock. Talking to your friends and family about what's happening in outside of TikTok is so invaluable. I cannot stress that enough. Co-signing this comment all the way, because if you're one of those people who can't donate and it doesn't really make content and are still wondering how you can amplify your voice and get involved outside of like attending protests and continuing to boycott, making sure your friends and family know, especially if they're not online, is vital. And I know it's so easy to think that because you're in the know and because you're so up to date, everybody else has to be as well. But that is not the case. Like, I teach at a college level. Like, I teach 18, 19, 20, 22-year-olds. And I have had many a class where I talk about different social issues and they're like blinking at me because they're not online. People genuinely are not as informed as, let's say, people who are online all day. But the minute they get informed, they lock in. My whole family is on the boycott train. I don't think a single one of us has stepped foot in a Starbucks or a McDonald's in who knows how long. I spoke to my granny's church about what's happening in a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was looking for different ways to get involved. Also, hey ladies, if you're seeing this, let me know if you ever want me to come back and I will happily return. Like, when I say word of mouth is so important, not only when it comes to keeping people generally informed, but to also combating all of the misinformation that we're getting around the clock from media sources and from news sources that people generally have more access to. I cannot stress that enough. So if you're one of those people wondering what else you can do to help for free, tell a friend. And make sure that that friend tells a friend or a loved one, because the work that we do on here is so important, but it also matters what we're doing out there. In the early morning hours, U.S. time, people were told to begin evacuating Rafah. This came just 24 hours after Al Jazeera was effectively banned from. Keep in mind, originally Rafah, a small town, was only home to about 280,000 people. It is currently housing well over 1 million people, including 600,000 children. With Rafah being the last border out of Gaza, people went there to shelter because they were told it was supposed to be a safe zone, despite the fact that people had been starved, bombarded, and living in less than humane living conditions for months. But after months of isolating Rafah and all Palestinians, cutting off humanitarian aid, massacring journalists, destroying hospitals, this morning, the announced that people have to flee despite having nowhere else to go. These well over 1 million people cannot all afford to enter Egypt, and even if they could, they can't all cross the border in time. And despite all of this, just mere hours after announcing that all people needed to evacuate, began their ground invasion of Rafah. This is on the heels of what we've seen after the last several days of the community being endlessly bombarded, whole neighborhoods and blocks being decimated. We are on the cusp of one of the greatest humanitarian failings of recent history, and if you have done nothing so far, now is a good time to start. Email your representatives, call, donate wherever you can to help as many people out as possible. Do whatever you can. There are no words for this. No words. Everything I've seen about the Drake-Kendrick beef is so funny, but I do want to remind you all that at the heart of all this beef is violence against women and children. I know. I can hear y'all now. Oh, here come the fun police. We can't have nothing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that. In fact, y'all are hilarious. I saw one comment section that had me in tears. Literally stitches. However, At the core of this, outside of all of the memes and the jokes and the skits and all that stuff, is violence and harm, especially that against children. Drake isn't just being accused of texting minors, which is already pretty bad. He's being accused of some really horrific stuff. And not just him, but the people he keeps on payroll and the people he keeps company with. People say stuff like, oh, Drake should apologize to Kendrick, or how's he supposed to come back from this? Why do you want him to come back from this? Drake doesn't need to be apologizing to Kendrick. He needs to be apologizing to all of the people who've been victimized by him in his circle. And Kendrick's hands aren't clean either. This isn't the kind of information that you find out in 36 hours or in a couple of weeks. This is information you've likely had and have been sitting on, which means other people likely know about Drake's activities. And in that silence, in not talking about it any sooner, is being complicit. It's not like Kendrick is some champion of women's rights. Cheating and abuse allegations aside, which crazy that we keep putting those things aside. He said nothing either way when his music was mixed up in some type of scandal with R. Kelly's music, and he included Kodak on an album. I mean, even we have a role to play in all this harm, because the minute we found out Drake might have an 11-year-old daughter, people started hunting for her. And then if they found her, or if they didn't, they dropped her Instagram profile, pictures of her, all this information about this girl. Whether she's Drake's daughter or not, that little girl deserves privacy. So make your jokes and your skits and all that stuff, Teehee, and carry on. I just don't want us to forget that at the core of this is a lot of harm, and a lot of people have gotten hurt at the hands of what's going on here. Within the last 12 hours or so, the IOF has sealed off the Rafah crossing. This means that nothing gets in and nothing gets out. This comes just 2 days after banning and removing Al Jazeera, the main news outlet, and just 1 day after telling all 1.5 million people in Rafah that they needed to evacuate, including 600,000 children. Now, after another day of endless bombardment, and you can see the footage coming from the Egypt side, it looks like fireworks lighting up the night sky, Israel has begun their on-the-ground invasion. This means no aid and no resources for the 1.5 million people currently sheltering in Rafah, who have for the last several months lived in tents with no infrastructure, sharing up to 20 to 50 people to a singular toilet with no food, nothing. And that all of these people they were told to evacuate cannot get out. This comes on the heels of what looks like to be another rejected ceasefire agreement by Israel that would have gotten all the hostages back. Herding people into what is essentially a land cage and then trapping them in there to be slaughtered by the millions is not something you do for your hostages. It's not something you do when you care about human life or your people or your country. It's something that you do in a land grab. It's something that you do when you want to erase a population of people and their culture and their community. It's something that you do in a genocide. And if you haven't called a spade yet, it's time. This is devastating news, and I'm not telling you this to be sad or to make you feel hopeless. I'm telling you because you should be angry. Harass your elected officials, harass anyone in government, harass anyone you can. The Met was on last night, and all of the thousands and thousands of dollars that went toward tickets and beautiful gowns could have gone towards this, any of this. So harass, well, anyone that seems to be in a position of power. Get them to use their voice, because this is a tragedy. And if you're not angry, you're just not listening. Remember everything. One of the best things you can do to support the people in Rafah right now and in Palestine overall is remember everything. You should also continue doing all of the action items you are already doing. Watching videos all the way to the end and engaging with them, donating to GoFundMes, because if they open the borders back up, we don't want people to have to fundraise. We want them to go right away. Contacting your legislatures, boycotting, protesting, all of the things. But also document everything. Take screenshots, take notes, journal things if you have to, save stuff, document everything. And above that, remember every single person that was complicit in this, because what's going to happen in like probably 5, 10, 20 years max is that they're going to try to rebrand. They've done it once and they'll do it again. Politicians that were all on board with this genocide are suddenly going to start changing their tune. It's going to go from, oh, this is what we need to do to protect from the terrorists, to that's a really bad word, we shouldn't say that. Oh, remember what happened this day, remember this genocide, blah, 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 like they cared. Don't let them get away with that, because that's how they get elected and reelected. It's also how they continue to stay in power to perpetuate this kind of harm. Keep in mind, this isn't Joe Biden's first rodeo. Celebrities are going to try to do the same thing after everything settles and it becomes abundantly clear that this is a genocide and this is a horrific humanitarian crisis happening. They're going to like release a new album or drop a new movie and want support, and they're going to have to backtrack all of this. And if we forget, they absolutely will. This is true for those who are going to want to start or restart their social media careers. It's people who want certain jobs in certain sectors. They will try to rebrand. We cannot let that happen because they don't learn from this. They just go on to perpetuate that harm later on down the line. So in addition to all the other action items, before they get to rewrite how this went down, document everything, remember everything, and remember everyone. This is the NMS, or the Narendra Modi Stadium. Forgive my pronunciation. It's the largest stadium in the world, and it seats 132,000 people. Remember that number, 132,000. This is a jigsaw puzzle. It has 136 pieces. Keep in mind, 136 pieces. There are 18 million people in Sudan right now who are acutely food insecure. 18 million. This is the largest man-made hunger crisis in the world as a result of the ongoing war that's been taking place in Sudan that has currently left over 25 million people in need of humanitarian aid. According to Islamic Relief Canada, people have resorted to eating leaves, peanut shells, and dirt in an attempt to survive, and about 1 child dies every 2 hours from malnutrition and disease. 1 every 2 hours. So to recap, this is NMS. It seats 132,000 people. This is 132,000 people. Each one of these pieces represents one of those stadiums. One stadium per puzzle piece. That is what 18 million people looks like. 18 million people struggling with acute hunger. I know there's a lot going on right now and a lot that needs our attention, but we cannot forget Sudan. We cannot. If you are on board with and participating in the celebrity block list, which you totally should be, and if you don't, like, quickly look it up. Essentially, we're like blocking big celebrities who haven't spoken up about all of the issues going on in the world. I want us to remember to use like a little bit of discernment and also organization in this movement. As we've seen from the college encampments, being organized and intentional and deliberate is essential to having the greatest impact. And I think that's starting to get away from us a little bit. And I'm not here to judge you for blocking any celebrity for any reason, especially your own personal reasons. But as a movement, I think we're starting to like lose some of our discernment, or at least organization. Like, I think we have to remember what the end goal is, who our targets are, and why, because people are starting to suggest random folk kind of because they have a big platform, but not using any discernment. Like, Jenna Ortega was on somebody's block list. As someone who's been advocating for Palestine, it doesn't really make like a ton of sense. Or like another person compared Zendaya to the Kardashians. Or Quanah Rose because she went to the Met and so she needs to be blocked, even though she's an indigenous activist who's been speaking out for tons of issues for literally her entire career. Or like somebody else that block all of the Hadids when the Hadids are A, Palestinian, but B, because feel how you feel about the Hadids, Bella has been openly vocal about supporting Palestine as a Palestinian. Like, obviously go for those who are openly Zionist, like Amy Schumer, or go for the big celebrities like Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I know, ow. Or don't forget to go for big businesses that continue to support and fund all of the crises going on in the world. But while we're doing that, don't forget that there are other crises that people are speaking out about besides Palestine, and also that not all celebrities and influencers are created equally, if you get what I'm saying. Also, do what you want, power to ya. But in terms of like an organized movement, let's not get entirely lost in the sauce, I think. Great question. How is blocking celebrities actually helping Gazans? First things first, in my humble opinion, blocking celebrities is not the most important thing we can be doing right now. Providing funding and aid directly to people on the ground is the best we can be doing by supporting Operation Olive Branch or Pass the Hat or any of the organizations on ground that are supporting to the best of their ability right now. That's the priority. Like, I've been watching Operation Olive Branch work tirelessly for months to get funding and aid, and it wasn't really until a person with a big platform, shout out to Erin Hattemer, took this on and started her own project in tandem with Operation Olive Branch, did we start to see some of the momentum that we're seeing now amongst other people with big platforms. Now imagine if a handful of celebrities pick that up. Imagine. But we are now well over 200 days into this ongoing genocide, and there are so many people who are still not using their voices, but expecting us to give them our money. No. I mean, won't even make an Instagram post about it, won't even put it in their story, but are expecting us to continue to support them via watching their ads, engaging with their content, following them online. And that's just not cool anymore. So, in an attempt to A, kind of encourage or almost force people to speak out, and B, to show that there are consequences to not using your power for good, and that we can't just stand by and continuously fund you and support you if you're not going to support people in crisis and in need, people are blocking celebrities, as they should. And so that's kind of the basis of the movement, to my understanding. One of my mutuals, Crutches and Spice, has an awesome video as to like how our engagement equals their dollars that you should absolutely check out. But like, to my knowledge, that's the gist. But yeah, continue doing all the other incredibly important things that we were already doing just along the way. Block these folks. If you're one of those people who feels like the whole block list thing is unimportant or a distraction, I want you to remember the value of older children and teenagers. And this point is two-pronged, so walk with me. Point one, this is obviously not the most important thing that we can be doing right now. We should continue to be pressuring our legislatures. We should continue to boycott. We should continue to protest in the streets. We should continue to donate aid, which I'm seeing significantly less of. That is the priority. But at least a couple of times a week, I get messages from people who are 11, 12, all the way up to like 15 that are like, I have no money, I have no say in my home, but I want to do something. What can I do? And this is something tangible that they can do. Because while as an individual, a older child or a teenager doesn't have a lot of like power, as a unit, they are an incredibly impactful demographic. Like their engagement and interaction and support has literally changed the trajectory of careers. And people know that. Businesses know that. Celebrities know that. And so as a celebrity or a business or an entity, to lose that demographic is incredibly impactful just without, us as grown folks. They matter here. This is not the equivalent to everybody posting like a black square during 2020 being like #BLM and moving on. This is, I am doing what I can in my power to intentionally divest my funds and my focus from this entity into these issues that matter because of their action or inaction. At least it isn't yet, which brings me to prong two, which is that we as grown folk have to do better. This has to be organized and intentional, or else it's just going to become the performance act that it is quickly dwindling into. The conversations surrounding block lists are dominating the conversation instead of talking about anything that's happening on the ground in Palestine right now. I've seen tons of comments from people talking about how there are too many block lists, how they are generally overwhelming, how they are confusing, and they pick celebrities that in general you wouldn't necessarily start with. Like I've seen people who are like, oh, we have to block Dolly Parton. But I don't hear nobody talking about Drake, which, what? And so while there is an element of truth to this, has the potential to not be very productive or useful, because if we do it wrong, then it's just a bunch of, well, I blocked so-and-so, so you should too, because I care. It can quickly become that. But when done correctly, it gives everybody, including a demographic of people with a decently large amount of pull as a unit, the ability to voice their opinions and to impact and to make a change. Because as we've seen in the last couple of days, it does work. If it doesn't work for celebrities, although it's worked for kind of a few, it is definitely working for influencers. So overall, it's not a bad thing when done correctly. It actually gives a lot of people a decent amount of power. And there's space for both. In the last 24 hours, CNN has reported that has torture camps where they are holding Palestinians that they have captured. The people in the images, mostly men, are all sitting behind a fence, all wearing the same grayish looking jumpsuit. According to whistleblowers, these people, these human beings, are forced to wear diapers. They are strapped to their beds. They're being fed through a straw. The air reeks of open wounds, and many have had limbs amputated because of those wounds. Again, remember, without anesthesia. This is just one example of the ample violence we are seeing come to light in the last couple of days. If you follow Motaz on Instagram, you can see example after example of this gruesome, horrific, graphic violence. And so while we're having all this discourse about like, who's on your celebrity block list? Do we block them? Do we not? Do we accept their apologies? Is it better late than never? While we're having all this discourse, we need to remember that we should be centering Palestinians and doing everything that we can to help. Because when the whole world was going around saying never again, we need to prove that at least some of us meant it. We're all talking about what celebrities to block because they're not doing enough, which is valid. I want us to make sure that we're also doing enough, especially when it comes to what's going on in Congo. Because to be quite honest with you, we're not. I'm not. You're not. We are not doing enough. Over a week ago, there was a horrific bombing on a camp in eastern Congo that mostly held displaced people, mostly women and children. And when I say horrific, I mean tragic. It's not just that people aren't talking about this incident, but they're not talking about Congo at all. And when they are, they're still phrasing Congo as if it's an afterthought. People are still calling it a silent genocide when at this point not one but two people have self-immolated in an attempt to draw attention to what's happening in Congo. It's not silent, it's being ignored. While we need to be putting energy and effort into creating organizations and networks to support these people and these families, we also need to be putting time and energy into the pre-existing organizations, and I'll tag some. But beyond that, I still see y'all buying new phones. I still see it. I still see y'all vaping left and right. And those are the bare minimum things we can stop doing or at least slow down to show our support. And it's nowhere. So while we're talking about needing to block this person and block that person because of their silence, make sure that you're not silent too. Make sure that you are doing the best that you also can. Just please.
Okay, so as we're talking about the blockout and the Hunger Games of it all, Jennifer Lawrence should also be blocked. Because while the Hunger Games books really help us to contextualize the current state of our world, as well as to challenge our critical thinking and make us question everything, the movies are still a part of an enormous film franchise. They still recently had a blockbuster movie come out, and a lot of the actors involved with the production of these films are Zionists. I think it's also important to note while we're talking about it that The Hunger Games is also an American-centric series. I'm seeing thousands and thousands of comments on Haley Bailey's recent apology video saying, I'm watching this from District 12. And while I see the joke behind the comments, I understand that it's a joke. The parallels to the Hunger Games in this instance are undeniable. However, in this context, do you really think that we as Americans would be anywhere close to District 12 in this scenario? I love the Hunger Games books to help me contextualize what's going on, to critically think, to challenge my thinking, to question everything. I think literature is really important for that reason. But we should not in turn be platforming the actors who portrayed the characters in those books by equating them with the morals and values that their character held. And it's important to keep a global perspective on this situation. We are not District 12 in this scenario. And I think there comes a point where the comparisons and the jokes become so convoluted that it derails the conversation from the actual problem that's happening right now, which is the genocide in Gaza, because so many people are talking about the Hunger Games comparisons and making fun of Haley Bailey's apology video. The point of the blockout is to draw attention away from these people, so we should stop talking about them and redirect the attention to the genocide that's happening in Gaza right now. And I'm not saying not to compare it to the Hunger Games or anything like that, because I myself have made the Hunger Games comparison on here. But I am saying to keep a global perspective on the issue and don't let the literary metaphors get so carried away that you forget the actual problem that we are talking about. Anyways, if you've made it this far, please check out the links in my bio. I have GoFundMes for families in Gaza who desperately need aid, as well as the link to Operation Olive Branch. There I have the link to Dr. Hisham and his family and his wife's GoFundMe. This is an older screenshot. We're up a few more $1,000s, which is amazing, as well as a family that my mutual Morgan has adopted through Pass the Hat. If even a fraction of my followers saw this and were able to donate even $1, we could make a huge difference in so many people's lives. Thank you so much to everybody who has already contributed so much. Here's a sleepy cat, because you made it this far. And cats can bring at least a little bit of happiness when times are tough. Oh, big stretch. Say we love you.
So let's talk about it. So recently there's been a lot of discourse about me being a single mother.
I wanted to stitch this because I don't really like this emerging trend of shaming Black single mothers for content. Because when I listen to these lectures about baby mama culture or shaming women for having children out of wedlock, I'm always left wondering how this content is helpful for women who already have children. Y'all aren't making videos educating childless women or men about birth control, family planning, sexual health, reproductive abuse. Y'all find women who are already single mothers so you can tell them that they shouldn't have had the children that they already have. These are women who are already living the most profound consequences of their reproductive decisions in a society that treats fathers as an afterthought, even in two-parent households. So creating discourse that's meant to rub their faces in the residue of their broken homes doesn't do anything but make y'all feel better. And I can tell that a lot of y'all don't actually give a fuck about the betterment of Black mothers because y'all get on this app and advocate for them to be stripped of one of the main things that can help them raise their children more effectively. Community. Day after day, I see takes about how women who had children with shitty men don't deserve friendship, sympathy, empathy, or relief. They can't even vent or complain about their situations. A lot of you don't even center the children in your own lives and neighborhoods, but we're supposed to believe that you're shaming single mothers out of genuine concern. And as much as Black traditionalists hate to hear this, a nuclear family is something that has never been accessible to every child, whether that's due to premarital sex, divorce, or death. So while it's fine to desire more two-parent households in the Black community, a single-parent household is still a family that's worthy of community and advocacy, and shame ain't gonna raise those babies. Oh my God, did y'all hear that Love is Blind is not getting renewed for another season? Now that I've gotten your attention, I'm here to talk about two upcoming cases that will soon be argued before the Supreme Court. A case out of Texas threatens to undo decades of progress in reproductive health care by restricting access to mifepristone, one of the medications used for abortion. Now, mifepristone is a safe medication that has stood the test of time for more than 20 years. But this is not about safety. It's just another attempt to destabilize abortion access, something that has already been hit with blow after blow since Roe was overturned. I find this next case particularly terrifying, and I would say it's dystopian, but it's very much our reality. The Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act is being challenged by Moyle versus United States and Idaho versus United States. To put it simply, these cases determine if Idaho and other states can enforce their abortion bans even if they conflict with federal law. If they are successful, then healthcare providers in certain states with abortion bans will be restricted from performing the procedure, even if it's necessary to stabilize somebody that's having a medical emergency. Yes, you heard me correctly. The quest to grant personhood to the non-sentient may one day conflict with pregnant people's right to stay alive. This shit is not a game. We are expecting decisions regarding both of these cases in June of this year. I'm not going to waste time debating the scenario of man versus bear because at this point that's becoming a distraction. Now y'all making videos about the statistical likelihood of encountering a bear. We're comparing an animal's natural instinct to a man who sets out to cause harm. All of this bullshit relating to a hypothetical when at the end of the day, bears are not the ones that caused 1 out of every 3 women to be a victim of violence. We don't sit up on the internet trading self-defense tactics because we're fighting bears. Bears are not the reason that most women are scared to go jogging at night. Bears don't grope or forcibly dance on women at nightclubs. Bears haven't frightened women to the point of giving up their phone numbers under duress. Bears ain't making laws stripping women of their personhood. Bears don't defend other bears when they're violent. So why the fuck are we talking about bears? This ain't the Animal Planet. The fact that lies beneath this hypothetical is that women's most direct threat in society is not a wild animal. It's a man. Does that mean that every man is a homicidal, violent maniac? No, most of you aren't serial killers, thank God. But there are different levels of violence and misogyny. And I find it weird that even the safe men can never engage in these discussions without belittling women for our very valid fears. Because even if y'all find the scenario to be histrionic, do you not understand the reality that is causing us to discuss it? And I get it. Y'all are defensive at hearing generalizations about men. There comes a time where every member of a privileged or dominant group must reconcile their individuality and their perceived goodness with the collective harm that their group has caused others. But if we're talking about feelings, I just read through a thread of over 1,000 women saying that they would literally prefer to be mauled to death than to be raped again. How do y'all think that feels? Aw, aren't they adorable? I just thought you all should meet the children of Alabama. As I'm sure most of you have heard, back in February, the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that embryos created through IVF are now considered minor children. This temporarily paused IVF in Alabama while everyone was trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Now, I remember making videos a year or maybe 2 years back about how attacks on reproductive health care would not stop at abortion. That birth control, IVF, life-saving medical procedures would all be at risk. And that may have sounded like fear-mongering at the time, but this case perfectly displays what I meant. Now, I do want to note that the governor of Alabama has provided legal safeguards for healthcare providers that has allowed IVF to resume in Alabama. But that legislation does not address the fact that Alabama now considers embryos children, which is the whole reason we're here in the first place. And I don't want to discount the miracle that is IVF and how it has given families the opportunity to have actual children. But anti-abortion lawmakers have been trying to push dangerous personhood laws for a very long time, even to the point of ignoring science and the well-being of their constituents. Alabama's ruling is a foreshadowing of how our right to reproductive health care and family planning will continue to be attacked if not taken away entirely.